that plays inside my head. I try to turn it down, but I can't quite drown it out. I'm tortured every day. These never-ending...
Welcome, and thank you today for joining us. You're listening to Society Bites Radio, and I'm your host, Dr. Richard Himmer.
And I'm CHERI HIMMER, and this is Authentically You, social interaction for the mind and soul.
For the next 25 minutes, we're going to talk about healing and growth from the inside out. Remember, you are 100% responsible for your happiness, joy, and well-being.
So in our last segment, we were, through the eyes of Betsy, kind of going through this process of understanding the concept of love, the principle of love, or the feeling of love, or the action of love. And she was kind of left with separating those things out because she had heard the sermon and was kind of left confused. And then she started, her awareness was raised by the sermon to a point that when she was experiencing with her grandchildren and seeing in different ways or contemplating about what was happening in marriage, she saw love differently.
And it was when her husband called her and was frustrated because he was arguing with a client of his, that he said, look, it's not about the money, Betsy, it's about the principle, that she tuned into, there's three aspects of love now. So there's a principle of love, there's the application of love, that's the call to action, and then there's the results or the feeling of love. And in the last segment, I left you by asking, is love conditional or unconditional? And what do you come up with as your definition of love? What are your principles? What are your applications? And what are your results? So I've been saddled with this for years. And I remember I was on a 5-mile run with a buddy of mine. And we are having this conversation because we'd read an article by one of my church leaders, our church leaders. And he argued that God's love is conditional. And this is a long time ago. And I thought, whoa, I've never heard anything like that before. Because that goes against what I was taught. And so it was unsettling. It didn't mean I didn't agree. It didn't mean I agreed. It means I didn't know what I didn't know. So that would be a consciously incompetent moment, right? I wanted to learn what I didn't know, so I had some sort of confidence with respect to it. So let me tell you where I've gone with this. I went to, because it was a religious setting in which this happened, I went to the Bible, and I started studying. What does love really mean? Is it conditional, unconditional, etc.?
From the acts of God in the Bible.
Because it was argued that God's love was conditional, and I needed to understand why. So I started asking everyone, clients, friends, family, is God's love conditional or unconditional? And for the most part, people, when I was asking it way back when, would argue, no, it's unconditional. Is a mother's love conditional or unconditional? Most people would argue it's unconditional. So that's the preset that I came with. And so that's why it was hard for me to accept that I have a church leader who said it's God's love's conditional. So there had to be context there that I didn't understand. And that's kind of where I went with it. And with the research that I did, I found, indeed, he's probably right, based upon what I researched, because I went to the scripture in John that said, and this is life eternal, that they might know thee. So I always thought that God's love and loving God is kind of the process of, moving to this great place after life to be with him. And I find that the etymology of the word in the Greek and in the Hebrew has a little bit different connotation. So let me share with you what we found. So is God's love conditional, unconditional? Is a mother's love conditional, unconditional? I have 3 definitions of love as the principle. Number 1 principle is to see good in others. Now, can you see good in others?
Meaning, can you see good in anyone or everyone?
Right.
And everyone would push it to an unconditional state.
And if you can do that, then that's an unconditional aspect of love. Now, the application is not the same.
Now, the interesting thing about it is that act of seeing others comes from you. It has really nothing to do about them. And so you can unconditionally love because of what you do to yourself.
Correct. And
how you apply that principle to your worldview.
So let's take Hitler, because that's a long, long time ago, fairly safe space, I hope. So can you see good, can you love Hitler? and you see good in Adolf Hitler. Well, let's look at...
Okay, I snort and laugh because it's like, it's too hard. That's my gut reaction. Like, yeah, I'm supposed to see good in everyone. I can look at the children across my classroom, and even though some get, are snarky or misbehave or whatever, I do love all my kids in my classroom as a teacher.
Right.
But if Hitler was in my classroom, I don't know.
Adolf Hitler gave us the VW. Called the Volkswagen.
And that's supposed to make me love them?
Okay, let's go on. It's an unconditional. Can you see good in him?
I'm trying.
He did good. He tried to do good in many areas. Now, was he misled? Yes. Did he harm people? Yes. But the fact is, Hitler did some good for the German people for a season. And
that is just such a tough exercise when you know the end result. It is so tough.
Exactly. But that's why it's possible. It's possible to unconditionally see good in others. It doesn't mean Ted Bundy. Did Ted Bundy's mother still see good in Ted Bundy?
Yeah, I said that one's easier for me to swallow, even though I grew up in Tacoma where Ted Bundy came from, and I even knew his little brother. But he was in my class, so we grew up in the same school. The little brother was, but Ted Bundy came from my neighborhood.
Right.
He killed girls in my neighborhood. It's really hard. But it's really hard.
I'm not saying it's easy. Mm-mm. I'm only asking.
But I did know his mom. She was a sweet woman.
Is it possible? Is it possible to see good in anybody?
Okay, on a limited basis.
I didn't say everything.
Right. Okay. You got to go to that limitation.
Hence, I said the Volkswagen.
Because there's a difference between, do I see some good or good results from people, or do I see them as good? And there's a big difference.
I agree with that.
Okay.
He's not, let's leave it at that. That was well said. In other words, it's possible to unconditionally see good in anybody.
In limited ways.
And we haven't done this yet, but I have this thing called the 5 understandings of flow. And in the 5 understandings of flow, one of the understandings is that every action has a positive intent. Every action has a positive intent. Now, this will take some cranial work.
Yeah, it's
but
really,
when you start
really hard when you use that Hitler example of.
But what was his intent? We can leave it rhetorical.
Yeah, don't even go there.
If you study it, you see his intent. And I'm not looking for someone to agree with me that Hitler was a good person. I'm not going there. I'm saying, is it possible to see that what he was really trying to do had an intent? And this is where we've talked about this. What was his childhood like? What was it growing up for him like? What was he trying to accomplish with what he had? He was doing the best he could with what he had. Every parent does that. And we have some pretty terrible parents in the world today. But they are doing the best they can with what they have, despite the fact they have multiple addictions, multiple challenges, and they don't know better. They're unconsciously incompetent, and some people intentionally incompetent. But is it possible to see good? Now, you don't have to agree with it.
Okay, as long as even in a limited way.
Yeah, that's all I said.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. That was fun.
But so that's where there's a difference of seeing any good versus as good.
Yeah, we're not trying to see them as good.
Can you see any good in any person?
Picture yourself as a God. That's pretty hard to do. But just picture God for a second. Can God see good in every creation?
Yes.
Can a mother see good in every one of her offspring?
I know, man. That's a tough one when you go like, okay, I believe that all people are children of God. I believe I'm a child of God. Is Hitler a child of God? No, he's the son of Satan.
Well, and we...
But no, I guess in a way he wasn't. Oh, that's really hard to say that.
All right.
But because he came to this earth, he had to be a child of God somehow.
We oftentimes...
But that's where I'm looking at is just as a principle. I'm not looking at the application.
We lose our ability to be empathetic in this situation. Yeah. We don't understand what it's like for them to go through what they went through. We only see the end result. Yeah. But we don't see everything that went on before the end result. You know, side note real quick, Dr. Covey tells the story in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He got on the subway on a Sunday morning, and it was pretty quiet. Everyone was reading their paper, and everyone was maybe 6 or 7 people, as I remember the story. And then a man gets on with 4 of his children and sits next to Dr. Covey, and the kids are out of control. They're bouncing off the walls. Now, do you see good in the kids? They're uncontrolled. The dad's clueless. He's looking stargazed, right? It's like deer in the headlights. He's not even present. And his kids are snotty noses and loud and bumping people and disturbing their quiet. Now, at initial glance, you go, this isn't a good scenario.
Yeah, you think rotten dad, kids out of control,
bad clueless father. And then Covey, feeling obligated because he was sitting next to him, leaned over to the man and said, "Sir, it seems like your children are making a lot of noise and they're out of control. They might need a little bit of help. Would you like me to help you?" And I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but that's the gist of it. And the dad just kind of snapped out of it like, "Oh, yeah, I'm on a subway right now." And he says, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We just came from the hospital a few minutes ago where their mother passed away. And it seems like they don't know how to handle it, and I don't either." And everyone sitting in the near vicinity heard him say that. Within moments, candy came out, chewing gum came out, kind words, and loving and care. And people were now applying the principle of love to see people, the good in people. And they were working with the children, talking to the children. It changed the scenario. It changed the energy on the subway.
Yeah.
Because they were empathetic. They saw it through the man's eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, principle. So, unconditional, see good in others.
Okay.
Conditional, mutual trust and respect, emotional intimacy. Now, why is that conditional?
There's people that I've had in my life that, I could say they were my friend, and I could see the good in them, but they had burned me sometimes. And I got to a point where I didn't trust them. I came away with, okay, I know them better, and I wouldn't trust them with maybe the most intimate aspects of my emotional life because of how things went down, right? And so they're a friend in a limited sense. I can see their good intentions even though they mess up, but I'm not going to trust them. And I didn't feel like it was mutual. I didn't feel like they, came through in certain things that were agreed upon and clear. And so maybe I forgave them for trespasses, but that doesn't mean I'm going to trust them again in the future. And I can move through the relationship more comfortably knowing I don't have to trust them explicitly.
Okay, so you've got these people you call them friends. I would call them acquaintances. A friend to me is a very sacred word, but the point being...
Yeah, maybe more of an acquaintance.
Okay.
But it's conditional, right?
What limits your ability to love them?
So the first definition, seeing good in them, I can love them unconditionally in that regard.
Okay. What limits you to love them conditionally? There's the condition. It's a limit.
That when they say they'll do something, they don't come through.
So you're saying their behavior limits your ability to give them more of your love.
So I'm almost using love synonymously with the word trust.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Is that not possible with God? God can see good in all of his children. But God's love is governed by us, not by God. So when I say God's love is conditional, most people go, but he's God.
Right. It's not about him.
But I'm a mother. I can love. And all I'm trying to do is give you more clarity to the story. And let me reframe that. This is what's helped me understand the term love, the principle of love. I am conditioned to love my 15-year-old child or my 16-year-old child by my child's lack of growth. Because he's 15, he's 16. I'm not going to give him the keys to my car, at least not right now. You're limited by these people because they're not trustworthy. Some people are self-governing. They're self-limiting because they don't trust and respect self. I am of worth. My relationships are based on mutual trust and respect. Well, you can't have a relationship on trust and respect if you don't trust and respect self. You just self-governed. You can't love God till you love self. You can't love another till you love